What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're gonna be talking about 5 ways to protect your 4Runner, Tacoma, or FJ Cruiser from premature wear and damage. So I absolutely love my 5th generation 4Runner. It is a tried and tested platform, and I wanna keep this thing for years to come. We all know those new generations that are coming out have 4-cylinder turbo engines with all sorts of bells and whistles. And I'm not entirely sure they will be as reliable as these tried and tested platforms. Who knows, in the next 10 years, these vehicles could be highly sought after for their simplicity and reliability. So what are some ways that we could be killing these super reliable 4Runners, FJ Cruisers, and Tacomas? And how can we preserve them for years to come? Number 1, use it or lose it. Let's talk about the 4-wheel drive system and usage frequency. Our Toyotas should be placed into 4-wheel drive frequently in order to keep the components and the system lubricated and functioning correctly. In order to warm up the transfer case, lubricate the gears and seals, and keep the actuators freely moving, it is recommended by Toyota that you put these things into 4-wheel drive for at least 10 miles each month or 16 kilometers. Now I know this seems like a lot, but it is a common issue with these vehicles that they get stuck or seized actuators in the transfer cases. Some people won't use their 4-wheel drive for months or maybe even years. So the last thing you want is to get stuck off-road only to discover that the actuator in your transfer case is also stuck or seized. So how do we engage this 4-wheel drive system? Well, we need to just switch from 2-wheel drive to 4-wheel drive high or H2 to H4. It is recommended that you only engage the 4-wheel drive system when off-road and in loose dirt or gravel. And this is so you don't damage your differential. When you lock into 4-wheel drive, your wheels all want to move at the same speed. When we corner, our outside wheel wants to move more than our inside wheel. So if there's no slippage like on dry pavement, this can strain or damage our differentials. So if you don't have the ability to run the 4-wheel drive system off-road, but you still want to engage it, just make sure you're driving mostly straight down the road and engage the system just by shifting from H2 to H4, either with a stick shift or your dial, and make sure you do it below 50 miles per hour or 80 kilometers per hour. It is still recommended that you engage the 4-low system from time to time just to keep that functioning correctly and engaging correctly. But in order to do this, you will need to be stopped. Just see the owner's manual for the correct procedure on how to engage the 4-wheel drive system and for additional safety tips. If you keep the system working freely and working normally and lubed, you will ensure that it runs for hundreds of thousands of miles problem-free. All right, number 2, let's talk about cylinder washdown or fuel wash. This is something that I'm guilty of, and it's something I'm trying to be more aware of to prevent premature wear and engine damage. It is actually quite easy to do. So let's first talk about what it is. What is cylinder washdown? Cylinder washdown occurs when your engine is running rich, or in other words, when there is extra fuel that isn't being burnt in the engine. This unburnt fuel can run down the cylinder walls, through your piston rings, and this thin gasoline basically washes away the oily film that is meant to lubricate our cylinder walls on startup. This can result in metal-on-metal contact, causing premature wear and scuffing of your cylinder walls. So how does this happen? Well, you can run rich due to a mechanical issue like leaky fuel injectors or a bad sensor, while other causes are actually normal, and this is where I'm guilty, and you may be as well. When we first start our vehicles, they run in what's called open loop fuel mode. They're not using the sensors to make decisions on how much fuel to add because the vehicle is just not hot enough to function correctly or efficiently. Once the system warms up, it will eventually go into what's called closed loop fuel mode, where it's using information from the sensors to determine how much fuel to put in the engine. So our vehicles run rich on startup or open loop fuel mode. And this is where the problem can occur. I'll give you an example of how I could have been damaging my engine. So when I make these videos, I start my cold engine, I bring it into my garage, the vehicle is cold, so it's dumping fuel into the cylinders during open loop fuel mode. After running it for about 20 seconds, I turn it off, I record a video for a couple hours, the engine is still cold, it never warms up, then I start it again for another 20 to 30 seconds, I roll it out into my driveway, then I turn it off. The next morning, the engine is cold, I start it again where it is running rich. So I've ran my engine 3 times now where it's been running rich and the fuel could be washing down the cylinders. And then when I started that 3rd time, this is a recipe for cylinder washdown. It could just be metal-on-metal contact at that point. So a good way to avoid this is to always allow your engine to warm up enough that your fuel mix leans out and the oil can move up into the cylinder walls with some higher RPMs. If you aren't burning the fuel, it will also be going down into your oil, which can take away from your oil's lubricating properties or abilities. If your oil level starts to rise between oil changes or starts to smell like gas, then you could be experiencing cylinder washdown and you could be potentially damaging your engine. Okay, so speaking of oil, let's talk about the 3rd way you could be damaging your engine: oil changes or the lack thereof. So for the 0W20 synthetic that our 4Runners, Tacomas, etc. take, Toyota says you can go 10,000 miles over 1 year, whichever comes first before changing this oil. But if you meet these special conditions, then you should change your oil every 5,000 miles or 8,000 kilometers or 6 months. So what are these special conditions? They are driving on dirt roads or dusty roads, driving while towing, using a car top carrier or heavy vehicle loading, repeated trips of less than 5,000 miles in temperatures below freezing, extensive idling, and or low speed driving for long distances. So I drive on dusty roads, dirty roads, my vehicle is heavy, and I make short trips to work all the time, sometimes in below freezing. So I change my oil every 5,000 miles or 8,000 kilometers. And when I do change it, my oil is visibly dirty and usually smells like gas. If you do long commutes to work or a lot of highway driving, I'm sure the 10,000 mile oil change is fine, but I personally like to err on the side of caution and change mine every 5,000 miles to be safe, as my driving habits, vary, and everyone's driving habits will vary. So there isn't a one size fits all approach to this, as what's required for everybody. If you are curious though, if you qualify for the 10,000 mile oil changes, you could always send your oil in to be tested at Blackstone Laboratories online. Check out their website and get a test kit. They will let you know how much life is left in your oil and can give you all sorts of analysis, some of which can actually help you diagnose other issues like cylinder washdown. So what oil is best for our 4Runners? Well, the Toyota branded 0W20 synthetic is very similar to Mobil 1. In fact, the Toyota Genuine Motor Oil is actually made by ExxonMobil. Except when tested, the Toyota Genuine Motor Oil has been found to have a lot more moly in it, like 10 times the amount. This moly improves the oil's coating effect, which reduces friction between surfaces. It kind of makes your oil like sticky. So instead of having metal-to-metal contact, you have moly on moly, reducing wear of those vital engine components. Most 0W20 synthetics will be similar and will provide adequate protection, but different brands will have different additives and such. People do say their noisy Toyota engines run much quieter with the Toyota branded engine oil. And this is maybe because of the higher moly content, or maybe it's something else. But if you want to know what's in your oil, you can check out the Petroleum Quality Institute of America webpage. This site is free, and they will actually show you test results for all the different oils. And it's actually quite interesting to see what's in different oils. So oil is important, but another thing that is often overlooked is the oil filter. Make sure you purchase good quality OEM Toyota branded filters, TRD filters, or just anything, it's high quality, Royal Purple, AMSOIL, but do not buy the cheap Amazon paper filters. They have been known to kind of collapse, and they can cause serious issues and starve your engine of oil. All right, number 4, engine coolant. Our 1GR FE engines in our Tacomas, FJ Cruisers, and 4Runners are incredibly reliable, but one of the first components to go is usually the water pump. A good way to extend the life of your water pump is to maintain the cooling system. Your coolant can become acidic over time and lose its rust-inhibiting properties, causing corrosion and premature wear. Coolant also works as a lubricant, especially in that water pump. I have a video on my channel where I take you through the whole process of changing the coolant on the 4Runner, which has the 1GR FE engine. Having a good coolant will preserve your water pump, radiator, and even your head gasket. All right, number 5, braking in your Toyota. So this one really applies to newer vehicles. Did you know there are guidelines for braking in these Toyotas? You can find them hidden in the owner's manual on page 100. For the 4Runner, it states to extend the life of the vehicle for the first 200 miles or 300 kilometers, avoid sudden stops. For the first 500 miles or 800 kilometers, do not tow. For the first 1,000 miles or 1,600 kilometers, do not drive at extremely high speeds. Avoid sudden acceleration. Do not drive continuously in low gear, and do not drive at constant speeds for extended periods. So basically, Toyota wants us to brake in, the brakes, transmission, and engine slowly and easily for the first 1,000 miles. I think it is also a good practice to do your first oil change after about 1,000 miles or 1,600 kilometers. I mean, what if there was machining debris left in the engine by Toyota? Nah, Toyota would never leave machining debris in an engine, would they? All right, guys, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I do hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye now.